October 15th, 1892, when rancher Cole Brennan hired the scarred woman who'd been sleeping in his barn. The townsfolk called him a fool for bringing a monster into his home. But the night armed men surrounded his ranch demanding the princess. Everything he thought he knew shattered. Who was this woman he'd trusted with his family? And why did a kingdom want her dead? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Cole Brennan wiped the sweat from his brow as he surveyed his sprawling Montana ranch from the porch of his timber frame house. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the valley, painting the grasslands in shades of amber and gold. His cattle dotted the hillsides like scattered seeds, and for a moment, everything felt right with the world. But that feeling never lasted long. His wife Margaret had been gone 3 years now, taken by fever that swept through their county like wildfire. She'd left him with 2 children, Thomas, now 12, and little Eliza, barely 8, and a ranch that demanded more hands than he could afford. His foreman, Dutch Holloway, was reliable enough, but the 2 ranch hands they employed were barely more than boys themselves. And the cooking situation had become desperate. They'd gone through 4 cooks in the past year alone. The first had stolen from them and disappeared in the night. The second couldn't handle the isolation and left after 2 weeks. The third started drinking heavily and had to be let go. The most recent one, Mrs. Pemberton, had lasted 3 months before announcing she was moving to San Francisco to live with her sister. That was 2 weeks ago, and since then, they'd been surviving on Dutch's barely edible stews and whatever Thomas could cobble together from Margaret's old recipes. Cole was considering making the 2-day ride to Helena to find another cook when he heard the commotion from the barn. "Get out of here, you devil!" That was Billy Crawford, one of the young ranch hands. His voice pitched high with fear. Cole grabbed his rifle from inside the door, not that he expected to use it. But caution had kept him alive this long, and strode toward the barn. The evening air carried the scent of hay and horse, familiar and comforting despite the shouting. When he pushed open the barn door, he found Billy backing away from one of the empty stalls, his face pale as milk. The other ranch hand, Sam Peterson, stood behind him, equally spooked. "What's going on here?" Cole demanded. Billy pointed a shaking finger toward the stall. "There's something in there, boss. Something unholy." Cole approached the stall slowly, rifle ready. The light filtering through the barn's gaps created striped patterns across the hay-strewn floor. At first he saw nothing. Then a figure shifted in the shadows, and he understood why Billy had been frightened. A woman sat huddled in the corner, her knees drawn to her chest. She wore a tattered dress that might have once been gray but was now the color of road dust. Her hair hung in matted tangles around her face, and when she looked up at him, Cole felt his breath catch. The entire left side of her face was covered in thick, ropey scars that twisted from her temple down to her jaw. The skin was puckered and discolored, pulling her mouth into a permanent half-grimace. Her left eye was nearly swollen shut from the damaged tissue. The right side of her face, by contrast, showed traces of what might have been remarkable beauty: high cheekbones, a straight nose, and an eye the color of storm clouds. But it was her hands that really caught Cole's attention. Despite the dirt and the ragged state of her dress, her hands bore calluses in odd places, not the rough, all-over calluses of a laborer, but specific marks on her fingers and palms that spoke of precise, repeated motions. He'd seen similar marks on Margaret's hands from years of needlework, but these were different somehow. "How long have you been in here?" Cole asked, lowering his rifle. The woman didn't answer. She just stared at him with that one clear eye, her expression unreadable. "Boss, you shouldn't get close to that thing," Billy warned from behind him. "Could be diseased. Could be cursed." "She's neither diseased nor cursed," Cole said firmly. "She's just a woman who's had some bad luck." He turned back to her. "When did you last eat?" Still no answer, but her gaze flickered toward a half-empty bucket of oats meant for the horses. Cole's jaw tightened. She'd been eating horse feed. "Billy, go to the house and bring back some of that stew from lunch. And some bread if there's any left." "Boss, you can't be serious." "Now, Billy." The ranch hand scurried off, muttering under his breath about foolishness and devils. Sam followed, leaving Cole alone with the woman. He dragged over a hay bale and sat down, keeping a respectful distance. "My name's Cole Brennan. This is my ranch. You're welcome to stay in the barn tonight if you need shelter, but come morning, you'll need to move on. I've got children in the house, and I can't have strangers lurking around." The woman's eyes studied him for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was rough from disuse, but there was something refined about it, an accent he couldn't quite place. "I can work." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Work? For food and shelter?" "I can work." She shifted, and he noticed she favored her left leg. "What kind of work can you do?" "I can cook, clean, mend clothes, tend gardens." She paused. Unstrong enough for most tasks despite. She gestured vaguely at her face. Cole considered this. The timing was almost too convenient. Here he was, desperate for a cook, and one literally appeared in his barn. But there was something off about the whole situation. Women didn't just materialize in Montana ranch country with nowhere to go and no explanation. "Where did you come from?" he asked. Her expression closed off immediately. "East. That's not much of an answer. It's the only one I have." Billy returned with a bowl of stew and a chunk of bread, holding it at arm's length as if the woman might bite him. Cole took it and set it on the ground within her reach. She didn't move until both men had stepped back. And then she ate with a strange combination of desperation and precision, as if she was both starving and trying to maintain some semblance of dignity. "What's your name?" Cole asked. She hesitated, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "Anna. Anna. Weston." The pause before the surname was telling, but Cole decided not to press. Everyone had secrets, and in the West, a person's past was generally their own business. "Well, Anna Weston, I'm in need of a cook. The last one left 2 weeks ago, and my children are growing tired of burnt stew and hard biscuits. The job pays $20 a month plus room and board. You'd have a small cabin out back, nothing fancy, but it's warm and dry. You'd be responsible for 3 meals a day for 5 people, me, my 2 children, my foreman, and 2 ranch hands. Sometimes we have extra men during cattle drives, but I'd get help brought in for that. You'd also be expected to keep the main house clean and do the washing." Anna had stopped eating, her one good eye wide with something that might have been hope or disbelief. "There's a catch," Cole continued. "My children have been through enough with losing their mother. I won't have them frightened in their own home. Your face," he gestured carefully. "I won't lie to you. It's going to scare them at first. Maybe for a while. You'll need to be patient with that." "Children are often frightened of me," Anna said quietly. "I'm accustomed to it. Can you handle it if they cry or run away?" "Yes." Cole studied her for another long moment. Everything about this situation screamed caution. A mysterious woman with a scarred face and a fake surname, appearing out of nowhere with convenient skills. But something in her eye pride, mixed with desperation, reminded him of Margaret in the early days, when they'd first started the ranch and had nothing but hope and determination. "All right," he said finally. "You can start tomorrow. I'll show you the cabin and get you some clean clothes. But understand this, I'm trusting you around my children. If you give me any reason to doubt that trust, any reason at all, you'll be gone before sunrise. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear, Mr. Brennan. It's just Cole." He stood up, brushing hay from his pants. "Finish eating, and I'll bring you some water to wash up. Tomorrow morning, I'll introduce you to Thomas and Eliza." As he walked back toward the house, He could feel Billy and Sam watching from the bunkhouse. They'd think he was crazy, and maybe he was. But something told him that Anna Weston, whoever she really was, needed this chance as much as he needed a cook. He just hoped he wouldn't regret it. The next morning, Cole woke before dawn as usual. He'd spent half the night wondering if the woman would still be there, or if she'd disappeared like a ghost. But when he walked out to the small cabin behind the main house, a structure that had originally been built for Margaret's mother before she passed, he saw smoke rising from the chimney. He knocked on the door, and after a moment, it opened. Anna stood there in a clean dress he'd left for her the night before. It had been Margaret's, a simple blue cotton work dress that was slightly too large on Anna's thinner frame. She'd managed to wash her hair somehow, and though it was still damp and tangled, he could see it was a dark auburn color, almost black in the early morning light. The scars on her face looked even more dramatic in the daylight, the damaged tissue standing out starkly against her pale skin. But she held herself with a strange dignity, her back straight and her chin up despite the disfigurement. "I'd like to start work," she said simply. Cole nodded. "Kitchen's through the back door of the main house. I'll show you where everything is. The children usually wake around 6, so we'll have time to get breakfast started before they come down." The ranch house kitchen was spacious by frontier standards, with a large cast-iron stove, plenty of counter space, and shelves lined with Margaret's collection of dishes and cooking implements. Anna moved through the space slowly at first, opening cupboards and drawers, taking inventory of what was available. "Flour, salt, sugar, lard," Cole listed off. "We've got a smokehouse with ham and bacon. Root cellar has potatoes, onions, carrots, turnips. There's a spring house with milk and butter. Chickens provide eggs. We slaughter a cow every few months for beef. Dutch keeps a garden in the summer with beans, tomatoes, squash, and whatever else Margaret had planted." Anna ran her fingers along the edge of the wooden counter, and Cole noticed again those unusual calluses. Not a laborer's hands, but not soft either. "I can work with this," she said. "When you say breakfast at 6, what do they usually eat?" "Thomas likes anything with eggs. Eliza's pickier. She prefers flapjacks with butter and syrup. I'll eat whatever you make. Dutch and the boys will eat anything that isn't moving." Anna almost smiled at that, a ghost of amusement that quickly disappeared. "I'll make biscuits, gravy, scrambled eggs, and bacon. Is that acceptable?" "More than acceptable. That sounds like a feast compared to what we've been having." He showed her where everything was stored, then left her to work. He had morning chores to attend to, but he found himself glancing back at the house more than once, wondering how the children would react. By the time he came back in, the kitchen smelled like heaven. Anna had indeed made biscuits, fluffy, golden biscuits that looked nothing like the hockey pucks they'd been choking down. The bacon was crispy but not burnt, the eggs were perfectly scrambled, and she'd made a rich sausage gravy that made his mouth water. "Thomas, Eliza, breakfast." He called up the stairs. He heard the thunder of small feet, and then his children appeared in their nightclothes. Thomas's dark hair sticking up in all directions, and Eliza rubbing sleep from her eyes. They stopped dead when they saw Anna standing by the stove. Eliza's eyes went wide, and she took a step backward. Thomas, trying to be brave like his father, stood his ground but went pale. "Children," Cole said gently, "this is Anna. She's our new cook." "Anna, these are my children, Thomas and Eliza." Anna didn't move from her position by the stove. She'd positioned herself so that her scarred side was slightly turned away from them, Cole noticed. "Good morning," she said quietly. "I've made breakfast. I hope you're hungry." Eliza pressed against Cole's leg, and he put a reassuring hand on her head. "It's all right, sweetheart. Anna works for us now. She's going to make our meals and help around the house." "What happened to her face?" Thomas blurted out, then immediately looked ashamed of asking. Anna's expression didn't change. "I was in a fire when I was younger. It hurt me, but it made me stronger. And I promise I'm a very good cook, even if I look frightening." "That's enough questions," Cole said firmly. "Let's eat before it gets cold." They sat down at the long kitchen table. Cole had insisted Anna eat with them, despite her protest that it wasn't proper. The meal was exceptional. The biscuits were light and flaky, the gravy rich and perfectly seasoned, and even the bacon was cooked to an ideal crispness. Eliza ate slowly, stealing glances at Anna between bites. Thomas focused intently on his plate, but ate 3 helpings of everything. When Dutch and the ranch hands came in for their breakfast, they were equally stunned by both the quality of the food and the appearance of their new cook. Dutch, to his credit, simply nodded at Anna and thanked her for the meal. Billy and Sam were less subtle, staring openly until Dutch kicked Billy under the table. After breakfast, as Anna began clearing the dishes, Cole pulled Thomas and Eliza aside in the front room. "I know Anna's appearance startled you," he said, "but I need you both to understand something. She's been through something terrible, a fire that hurt her badly. But she's still a person, and she deserves to be treated with kindness and respect. Can you do that?" Thomas nodded seriously. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry I asked about her face." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. It's natural to be curious. But from now on, you treat her like you'd treat anyone else working here. Understood? "Yes, sir." Eliza was quieter, still processing. "Does it hurt her?" "I don't know, sweetheart. But I imagine it did when it happened. Very much. That's why we need to be extra kind to her. Okay, Papa." Over the next few days, a routine established itself. Anna proved to be an exceptional cook, far better than anyone they'd had before. Her bread was the best Cole had ever tasted. Her stews were rich and flavorful, and she could do things with simple ingredients that seemed almost magical. The ranch hands gained weight, and Dutch declared her a miracle worker. But there were oddities that Cole couldn't ignore. Sometimes he'd catch Anna staring out the window toward the eastern road, her posture tense as if expecting something. She never left the ranch property, even on her half-day off. And once, when a traveling peddler came by, she disappeared into her cabin and didn't emerge until he'd left. Most strange of all were her hands. One evening, Cole came into the kitchen to find her peeling potatoes with a knife, and the precision of her movements was remarkable. Each peel came off in a perfect spiral, and she worked with a speed and accuracy that spoke of years of training, but not in cooking. "Where did you learn to handle a knife like that?" he asked. Anna's hand stilled for just a moment before continuing. "My mother taught me when I was young. She believed in doing things properly. Your mother must have been quite particular." She was. Cole wanted to press further, but something in Anna's tone warned him off. Everyone had secrets, he reminded himself, as long as she did her job and didn't cause trouble. Her past was her own business, but 3 weeks after Anna's arrival, that philosophy was about to be tested in ways Cole never imagined. The first sign of trouble came on a Thursday afternoon when Cole was mending fence posts in the northern pasture. He saw a cloud of dust rising from the main road, multiple riders moving fast. In Montana Territory, riders traveling that quickly usually meant one of 3 things: a posse chasing outlaws, cavalry on urgent business, or trouble looking for someone specific. Cole's gut told him it was the third option. By the time he rode back to the ranch house, 6 men had already dismounted in his yard. They weren't cavalry, their clothes were too fine, their horses too expensive. These were private men, well-armed and dangerous. The leader wore a black coat with silver buttons that glinted in the afternoon sun, and his face bore the weathered look of someone who'd spent years enforcing other people's will. Dutch had positioned himself on the porch, rifle held casually but ready. Thomas and Eliza were nowhere to be seen, which meant someone had the sense to get them inside. "Help you, gentlemen?" Cole asked, dismounting slowly and keeping his hands visible. The leader stepped forward, his eyes scanning the property with the thoroughness of a man used to finding what he was looking for. "Name's Garrett Finch. I'm a private investigator working for certain parties back east. We're looking for a woman. Been tracking her for near 6 months now." Cole kept his expression neutral. "Lot of women in Montana territory. You got a name?" Finch pulled a folded paper from his coat and handed it over. It was a wanted poster, but not the crude frontier kind. This was professionally printed on expensive paper, with an artist's rendering that made Cole's blood run cold. The face in the drawing was beautiful aristocratic features, long dark hair, elegant posture. But more importantly, it was recognizable. Remove the scars, add some weight and health, and you'd have Anna Weston staring back at you. "Her name is Katerina Volkov," Finch said, watching Cole's reaction carefully. "Princess of a small European principality. She fled her country 7 months ago after being accused of murdering her husband, Crown Prince Leopold, and stealing a considerable fortune in royal jewels. There's a reward of $50,000 for her return alive and unharmed." Cole forced himself to look skeptical. $50,000? That's more money than most folks see in a lifetime. Seems excessive for one woman. The principality wants her back to stand trial. More importantly, they want the jewels returned. Finch gestured to his men. "We've been following her trail across the country. Lost her in Denver for a while, picked it up again in Wyoming. A bartender in Big Timber said a scarred woman passed through 3 weeks ago, heading west. That timeline would put her right in this area. Sorry to disappoint you, but I haven't seen anyone matching that description." The lie came easily, though Cole's heart was hammering. "Just my family, my foreman, and 2 ranch hands here." Finch's eyes narrowed. "You mind if we look around? We're authorized to search any property where we have reasonable suspicion." "Authorized by who?" "This is American soil, not some European kingdom. You got no authority here except what I give you, and I'm not giving any." One of Finch's men, a burly fellow with a scar across his nose, spat tobacco juice into the dirt. "We can do this easy or hard, rancher. Your choice." Dutch chambered around in his rifle. The metallic click sharpened the tense air. The man said no. "Time for you folks to move along." Finch held up a hand, calming his men. "No need for hostilities. We're all reasonable people here." He pulled out a leather wallet and extracted several bills. "I'm prepared to offer $500 just for information. If she's been through here, if you've seen her, just point us in the right direction, and this money is yours. No questions asked about why you might have sheltered her." Cole's mind raced. $500 would solve a lot of problems, new equipment, repairs, maybe even hire another ranch hand. But he thought about Anna in the kitchen that morning, teaching Eliza how to braid bread dough, patient despite the girl's initial fear of her. He thought about the way she'd carefully mended Thomas's torn shirt, her stitches so precise they were almost invisible. "Haven't seen her," Cole repeated firmly. "Now I've got work to do, and you're wasting daylight." Finch studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "We'll be staying in town for a few days, asking around. If you happen to remember anything, you can find me at the Silver Creek Hotel." He swung back onto his horse. "And Mr. Brennan? That reward is real. $50,000 could change a man's life. Think about it." They rode off, leaving a cloud of dust and unspoken threats hanging in the air. Dutch waited until they were out of sight before speaking. "She in the cabin?" "I assume so." Cole's jaw was tight. "Get Thomas and Eliza. We need to have a conversation." He found Anna exactly where he expected, standing at the cabin window, her face pale, watching the dust from the departing riders. She didn't turn when he entered. "They found me," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. "They found someone." Whether that someone is you depends on what you tell me right now. Cole closed the door behind him. Are you Princess Katerina Volkov? Anna Katerina finally turned to face him. In the dim light of the cabin, her scars seemed even more pronounced, but her bearing had changed. The hunched, defensive posture of a woman trying to disappear was gone, replaced by something regal and defiant. Yes. Did you murder your husband? No. Did you steal royal jewels? That's more complicated. Cole pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. I've got time. Start explaining, because right now I've got 6 armed men who think I'm harboring a fugitive. And they offered me $500 just for pointing them in your direction. Katerina sat across from him, her hands folded on the table. Those unusual calluses made sense now. They were the marks of someone trained in embroidery, fine needlework, the delicate arts expected of a princess. My husband did die, she began. But I didn't kill him. Leopold was not a kind man. Our marriage was arranged when I was 16, political alliance between families. He was 20 years older, and he drank heavily. When he drank, he became violent. She touched the scars on her face unconsciously. This happened 2 years into our marriage. He came home drunk one night, angry about something trivial. He threw a lamp at me. The oil ignited, and I burned. The palace physicians did what they could, but she gestured at her ruined face. After that, I was embarrassed. A princess should be beautiful, decorative. I was hidden away in the west wing of the palace, allowed out only for necessary state functions, always veiled. Leopold took mistresses openly. I existed to produce an heir, nothing more. Cole listened, his anger building not at Katerina, but at the situation she described. 7 months ago, Leopold died. He fell down the palace stairs, drunk as usual. Broke his neck. His family immediately accused me of pushing him. It was convenient, the scarred, bitter wife seeking revenge. They called for my execution, and the jewels? My mother's dowry. When she married my father, she brought jewels worth a fortune. According to our laws, dowry property remains with the woman's family line. When my mother died, they passed to me. But Leopold's family claimed they were royal property, part of the crown treasury. When I fled, I took what was legally mine. How'd you get all the way to Montana? I had help servants loyal to my mother's memory. They smuggled me out of the palace and got me on a ship to America. I had some jewelry sewn into my clothes, enough to pay for passage and travel. I came west because I thought in the frontier, no one would care about a European princess. I thought I could disappear. You almost did, Cole said. If you'd kept moving, maybe they never would have found you. I was tired of running. Tired of hiding. When I found your barn that night, I'd been walking for 2 days with almost no food. I couldn't go any further. Her voice cracked slightly. And then you offered me a job, treated me like a person instead of a monster or a trophy. Your children learned not to fear me. For the first time since the fire, I felt almost human. Cole rubbed his face with both hands. This was so far beyond anything he'd prepared for when he'd offered her work. But he kept coming back to one thing: he believed her. Maybe he was a fool, but something in her story rang true. These men aren't going to give up, he said finally. $50,000 is too much money. Even if they don't find evidence here, they'll keep looking. They'll watch the ranch, follow anyone who leaves. I know. I'll go tonight, after dark. Head north toward Canada, maybe. They'll follow me eventually, but at least you and your family will be safe. The hell you will, Cole said sharply. You leave now, in the dark, on foot, or even on horseback. They'll spot you before you make 10 miles. They probably have men watching the roads already. Then what do you suggest? I suggest we think this through carefully. You're not some outlaw they can just haul off. You're a foreign citizen on American soil. They have no legal authority here, just money and guns. Money and guns are all the authority most men need. Maybe, but we're not in some lawless corner of nowhere. There's a law in Silver Creek, such as it is. Sheriff Tompkins is a reasonable man. If we explain the situation, no. Katerina stood abruptly. You don't understand what these people are capable of. They've spent 7 months tracking me across an ocean and a continent. They won't be stopped by a frontier sheriff. And if you get involved, truly involved, they'll hurt you and your children to get to me. I won't allow that. Little late for that. I already lied to them. I already sent them away. I'm involved whether either of us likes it or not. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dutch's voice came through. Cole? Thomas and Eliza are asking questions. Might want to come handle that. Cole stood. We're not done with this conversation. Stay here, stay out of sight. I'll deal with the children. He found Thomas and Eliza in the kitchen, both looking frightened. Thomas had his arm around his little sister protectively, and the sight made Cole's heart ache. Papa, who were those men? Thomas asked. Cole knelt down so he was at their eye level. They're men looking for someone. Someone who didn't do anything wrong, but some bad people back where she came from are saying she did. They're looking for Anna, aren't they? Thomas was too smart for his own good sometimes. Yes. Eliza's eyes filled with tears. Is Anna going to leave? Not if I can help it, sweetheart. Good, Eliza said fiercely. She makes the best pancakes, and she's teaching me to sew, and she tells better bedtime stories than anyone. I don't care what she looks like. She's nice. Thomas nodded. She taught me to play chess. She's really good at it. She said she used to play with her father when she was young. Cole felt something settle in his chest, a decision crystallizing. His children had already lost their mother. They'd been through hell, and they'd finally found some stability with Anna Katerina, whatever her name was. He'd be damned if he'd let some European bounty hunters rip that away, because of a murder she didn't commit. Listen to me carefully, he said. Those men might come back. They might ask you questions. If they do, you tell them the truth, that Anna cooks for us and takes care of the house. But you don't volunteer for anything else. You don't tell them stories about chess or sewing or where she came from. Can you do that? Yes, sir, Thomas said. Yes, Papa, Eliza echoed. Good. Now I need you both to go to your rooms for a bit. Dutch and I need to talk about some grown-up things. Once the children were upstairs, Cole gathered Dutch and explained the situation. The foreman listened without interrupting, his weathered face thoughtful. That's a hell of a mess, Dutch said when Cole finished. But I'm with you. Woman didn't kill nobody, and those jewels sound like they're rightfully hers. Besides, she makes the best damn biscuits I've ever had. Despite the tension, Cole almost smiled. It's going to get dangerous. Been dangerous before. Remember that winter we fought off those cattle thieves? Or the time that grizzly got into the herd? This ain't much different, just the predators walk on 2 legs instead of 4. I need you to ride into town tomorrow. Casual-like, not suspicious. Find out what Finch and his men are doing, who they're talking to. But be careful. These aren't small-time criminals. They're professionals. I can be discreet when I need to be. And send Billy to the Morrison Ranch. Tell them we might need some extra hands for a few days. Make up some story about bringing cattle down from the high pasture early. Dutch nodded slowly, understanding. More men meant more security, and the Morrison boys were good with rifles. That night, Cole barely slept. He kept thinking about Katerina's story, about the life she'd fled. A princess reduced to sleeping in barns and eating horse feed. A woman whose greatest crime seemed to be surviving her. Husband's abuse and refusing to let his family steal what was hers. He thought about Margaret, about how she'd have handled this situation. She'd always had a soft heart for those who were suffering, always seen the best in people. He knew exactly what she'd say. "Cole Brennan, if you turned that woman away, you're not the man I married." Around midnight, he heard a noise from the cabin and looked out his window. Katerina was standing outside, staring up at the stars. Even from a distance, he could see the tension in her posture, the way she held herself like someone preparing for battle. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Finch wouldn't give up easily, and $50,000 would tempt even honest men to dishonesty. But Cole had made his decision that Anna Weston Princess Katerina Volkov was under his protection now. And any man who wanted to take her would have to go through him first. The question was, would that be enough? Dutch returned from town the next afternoon with news that confirmed Cole's worst fears. Finch and his men had rented rooms at the Silver Creek Hotel and were methodically questioning everyone who'd passed through town in the last month. They'd shown the sketch to the mercantile owner, the blacksmith, the saloon keeper, and anyone else who'd listen. "They're being smart about it," Dutch reported, settling into a chair in Cole's study. "Not threatening anybody, just asking polite questions and flashing money around. Offered the bartender $20 just for keeping his ears open. Anyone recognize her from the drawing?" Cole asked. "Not that admitted to it. But Charlie Mason at the feed store kept looking at it real hard. He delivered supplies here 2 weeks back and might have caught a glimpse of her through the kitchen window." Cole cursed under his breath. Charlie Mason was a decent man but had 6 kids and a wife to feed. $20 would be mighty tempting. "There's more," Dutch continued. "They visited Judge Harrington this morning. Came out carrying some kind of official-looking papers. That was worse. Judge Harrington was corrupt as they came, more interested in lining his pockets than dispensing justice. If Finch had paid him off, they might have legal cover for whatever they planned next. The Morrison boys coming? Should be here by sundown. Told them you'd pay double wages for a week's work. Good." Cole stood and walked to the window. Watching Katerina in the garden with Eliza, the princess was showing his daughter how to identify herbs, their heads bent together over the plants. Eliza was actually smiling, something she hadn't done much since Margaret died. "You're really going to fight for her," Dutch said. "It wasn't a question. I gave her my word she'd be safe here. I don't break my word. Even against 6 professional guns for a woman you've known for 3 weeks. Cole turned to face his foreman. "You have children, Dutch?" "You know I don't." "Then maybe you can't understand. Those kids up there, they've been through hell. They watched their mother waste away from fever, heard her screaming in pain at the end. For 2 years they've been living in a house full of ghosts and bad memories. Then Anna shows up and suddenly Eliza's laughing again. Thomas is learning chess instead of having nightmares. The house feels like a home." He ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I should take that $500 and point them north while she runs south. But I look at my daughter's face when Anna teaches her to braid bread, and I think about what kind of man I'd be if I sold that for money. What kind of example would I set for my children?" Dutch was quiet for a long moment. "Margaret would be proud of you. Or she'd think I'd lost my mind. Maybe both." Dutch stood. "I'll get the rifles cleaned and make sure we've got plenty of ammunition. Just in case talking doesn't work." After he left, Cole went out to the garden. Katerina looked up as he approached, and Eliza ran over to show him a sprig of lavender. "Anna says if we dry it and put it in sachets, it makes clothes smell nice and keeps moths away." "That's very clever," Cole said, ruffling her hair. "Why don't you go help Thomas with his chores? I need to talk to Anna for a moment." Once Eliza was out of earshot, Katerina stood, brushing dirt from her skirt. "Bad news? Finch has the judge in his pocket. Dutch thinks one of the townspeople might have recognized you. Then I should leave tonight. Before this gets worse. And where? They'll have scouts watching every road. You wouldn't bake it 5 miles. Cole kept his voice low. Besides, I've been thinking about this differently. You're not some criminal they can just haul off. You're a foreign dignitary on American soil. A foreign dignitary accused of murder. Accused by people in another country who have no jurisdiction here. Murder's a serious charge. If they want you extradited, they need to go through proper diplomatic channels. What they're doing now, hunting you with hired guns, that's kidnapping. Katerina's scarred face showed surprise. You've been reading law books? I've been thinking about what Margaret would do. She was always smarter than me about these things. She'd say we need someone with real authority on our side, not just Judge Harrington's bought and paid for version of justice. Who did you have in mind? There's a U.S. Marshal stationed in Helena. Tom Blackwood. He's a straight arrow, doesn't take bribes. If we can get word to him about what's happening here, foreign agents operating on American soil without proper authority, he might intervene. That's a 2-day ride to Helena, which is why I'm sending Dutch tonight, after dark. He'll take the back trails, avoid the main roads where Finch might have men watching. Meanwhile, we sit tight and don't give them any excuse to make a move. Katerina studied him with those storm-gray eyes. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're good with my children. I know you work hard and don't complain. I know you've been dealt a rotten hand and you're trying to make the best of it. He paused. And I know my daughter smiles when you're around, and that's worth more to me than $50,000. For the first time since he'd met her, Katerina's eyes glistened with tears. She blinked them back quickly, straightening her shoulders. If this goes badly, it won't. But if it does, I want you to know I'm grateful. More grateful than I can express. This place, these past few weeks, they've been the closest thing to peace I've had in years. Cole wanted to say something reassuring, but the sound of horses interrupted him. 3 riders were approaching from the south, moving at an easy pace. The Morrison boys. Jake Morrison was the oldest at 25, with sandy hair and a rifle slung across his back. His brothers, Luke and Henry, flanked him, both equally well armed. They were good men, loyal, and most importantly, they owed Cole a debt from the winter he'd helped them through a bad bout of cattle disease. "Mr. Brennan," Jake called out, tipping his hat. "Dutch said you needed extra hands. Appreciate you coming. I'll pay double wages, but I need to be straight with you about what you're walking into." Cole gestured toward the house. "Let's talk inside." He gathered everyone in the main room, Dutch, the Morrison boys, Billy, Sam, and Katerina. Thomas and Eliza were upstairs, safely out of earshot. "Here's the situation," Cole began. "The woman you know as Anna is actually Princess Katerina Volkov from a small European country. She's wanted back home for a murder she didn't commit and for jewels that are rightfully hers. There are 6 professional guns in town right now, led by a man named Garrett Finch, and they're being paid $50,000 to take her back." Billy and Sam exchanged shocked looks. The Morrison boys remained impassive, waiting for more information. "Now I've offered Katerina my protection, and I intend to keep that promise. I've sent Dutch to Helena to fetch a U.S. Marshal, which should settle this legally. But until he gets here, we need to make sure Finch and his men don't try anything stupid. You're asking us to risk our lives for a stranger." Luke Morrison said flatly, "I'm asking you to help me defend my property and my household from men who have no legal authority to be here. Whether you believe Katerina's story or not, the fact remains, Finch is planning to kidnap someone from American soil. That makes him a criminal, and we have every right to defend against him." Jake Morrison leaned back, considering. What's to stop them from just riding in with superior numbers and taking her by force? The fact that we're all witnesses. If they try a daylight raid, everyone in this room can testify to kidnapping. They'd face charges themselves, lose any chance of collecting that reward. They're professionals. They'll want to do this quietly, legally if possible. And if they can't? Henry Morrison asked. Then things get messy. Which is why I need men I can trust to watch my back and protect my family. The Morrison boys looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations brothers can have. Finally, Jake nodded. We're in. Your father helped our family when we first came to Montana. Figure we owe the Brennans that much loyalty. Double wages, Cole confirmed. And any man who doesn't want to be part of this can leave right now. No hard feelings. No one moved. All right then. Here's how we handle this. Nobody goes anywhere alone. We work in pairs minimum, 3 when possible. Someone stays at the house at all times with Katerina and the children. We post a watch at night, rotating shifts. And if Finch shows up, we're polite but firm. No provocation, but no backing down either. Dutch stood. I should head out soon if I'm going to make good time to Helena. Back trails are slower, but safer. Take the Baymar, she's got the best endurance. And Dutch? Be careful. If they're watching the roads, they might be watching who comes and goes from here too. After Dutch left, Cole assigned watches and duties. The Morrison boys would take the first night shift. Billy and Sam would handle morning patrol. And everyone would eat meals in shifts so the house was never unguarded. Katerina had been silent through all of this, but now she spoke up. I could stay in the root cellar. Or the barn. Somewhere less obvious. You'll stay in your cabin, Cole said firmly. We're not hiding you like a criminal. That just makes us look guilty. That night, Cole checked on Thomas and Eliza before bed. Thomas was sitting by his window, watching the yard where Jake Morrison stood guard. Papa, are we in danger? He asked quietly. Cole sat on the edge of the bed. I won't lie to you, son. There might be trouble. But I've got good men watching over us, and we're in the right here. That counts for something. The men looking for Anna, they want to hurt her, don't they? They want to take her back to people who will hurt her, yes. But she didn't do anything wrong. No, she didn't. Which is why we're protecting her. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Mama would have done the same thing, wouldn't she? Yes, she would have. Then I'm not scared. If you and Mama both think it's the right thing, then it is. Cole pulled his son into a hug, feeling a fierce pride mixed with fear. This boy had grown up too fast, seen too much hardship. But he was turning into a good man. In Eliza's room, his daughter was already asleep, clutching a rag doll Katerina had mended for her. Cole adjusted her blanket and kissed her forehead, making a silent promise that he'd keep her safe no matter what. He was heading to his own room when he saw a lamplight in Katerina's cabin. Against his better judgment, he walked over and knocked softly. She opened the door, still dressed, clearly not planning to sleep. Is something wrong? No, just checking on you. He hesitated. Can I come in for a moment? She stepped aside, and he entered the small space. It was neat as a pin, everything in its place. On the small table, he noticed something that made him pause. A leather-bound book, open to a page covered in elegant handwriting. You kept a journal? I started it on the ship coming to America. A way to remember who I was before I became someone running and hiding. She closed the book gently. Sometimes I worry I'll forget. Forget what the palace looked like in spring, or the sound of my mother's voice, or the feeling of being someone who mattered. You matter here, Cole said. To my children. To me, Katerina smiled sadly, the expression strange on her scarred face. For now. But when this is over, when either Finch takes me or the marshal sends me away, what then? You'll need another cook. Thomas and Eliza will adjust. Life goes on. Is that what you think? That you're just another hired hand who can be replaced? Aren't I? Cole stepped closer. My daughter calls you by name now. Not ma'am or miss. My son asked you to teach him chess because his mother used to play with him, and he missed it. You've become part of this family, whether you realize it or not. Cole, I'm not saying this because I expect anything from you. I'm saying it because you need to know you're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, you've got people here who care about what happens to you." Katerina looked away, her voice rough. "I'm not used to that. To people caring. Then get used to it. Because we're not letting you go without a fight." He left before she could respond. But he saw the way her hand went to her scarred cheek, covering it as if she could hide her vulnerability behind disfigurement. Back in his room, Cole loaded his rifle and set it by his bed. Then he lay awake, listening to the night sounds, the creak of floorboards as Jake Morrison paced his patrol. The distant call of an owl, the wind through the pines. Somewhere out there, Garrett Finch was planning his next move. And somewhere on the road to Helena, Dutch was racing to bring help. The question was, which would arrive first, the marshal's authority or Finch's violence? Cole had a feeling he'd find out soon enough. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Cole was in the barn the next morning, checking out a mare that had gone lame, when Henry Morrison came running in, breathless. "They're coming." All 6 of them, plus Judge Harrington, got some kind of paper in his hand. Cole's jaw tightened. So Finch had moved faster than anticipated, getting legal cover before the marshal could arrive. "Get everyone to the house, now." By the time the riders appeared on the eastern road, Cole had positioned his people strategically. Jake Morrison stood on the porch with a rifle. Luke was at the barn entrance. Billy and Sam flanked the main gate. Cole himself stood in the center of the yard. Unarmed but ready, Katerina he'd ordered to stay in the cabin with Thomas and Eliza. Though he knew she'd be watching from the window, Finch rode at the head of the group, Judge Harrington beside him looking uncomfortable in the saddle. The judge was a portly man with thinning hair and a perpetual sheen of sweat on his forehead. The remaining 5 hired guns spread out in a loose semicircle, hands resting on their weapons. "Mr. Brennan," Finch called out pleasantly, as if they were old friends meeting for tea. "We have some business to discuss. Then discuss it from there. You're not welcome on my property." Judge Harrington cleared his throat, pulling out a document. "Now, Cole, let's be reasonable about this. I have here a warrant for the arrest and extradition of one Katerina Volkov, also known as Anna Weston, wanted for murder and theft in the Principality of Valdoria. As an officer of the territorial court, I have the authority to execute this warrant." "Let me see it," Cole demanded. Harrington rode forward carefully, extending the paper. Cole read it quickly. It looked official enough, proper seals, legal language, all the trappings of legitimate authority. But something nagged at him. "This warrant is issued by the Valdorian government, not the United States," Cole said. "You have no authority to enforce foreign law on American soil." "The warrant has been endorsed by the territorial governor," Harrington said quickly. Too quickly. "That makes it binding within Montana territory. Show me the governor's signature." Harrington's face reddened. It's being processed. The endorsement is pending, but given the severity of the crimes, so you don't actually have legal authority. You have a foreign warrant and a promise." Cole crumpled the paper and tossed it back. "That's not worth the paper it's printed on. Get off my land." Finch's pleasant expression didn't waver, but his eyes went cold. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Brennan. We're trying to do this legally, properly. But there are other ways." "That sounds like a threat." "It's a statement of fact. Princess Katerina is wanted for serious crimes. We will take her back, with or without your cooperation. The only question is how much trouble you want to buy yourself in the process." Cole was acutely aware of his men positioned around the property, of the weapons within reach, of the thin line between standing firm and starting a bloodbath. "Here's another fact for you, Finch. That woman is under my protection. Anyone who tries to take her by force will answer to me and every man on this ranch. And unlike your bought and paid for judge, We have the legal right to defend our property from trespassers, even if those trespassers are officers of the law." Harrington sputtered. "You're not an officer enforcing legitimate law. You're a corrupt official taking bribes to help kidnappers. There's a difference." One of Finch's men, the burly one with the scarred nose, leaned forward in his saddle. "Big talk for a rancher with half a dozen guns against our 6. 6 against 9, actually," Jake Morrison called from the porch. "And we're defending home ground. You want to try your luck?" The tension stretched taut as a wire. Cole could feel the moment balancing on a knife's edge, one wrong word, one nervous trigger finger, and this could explode into violence that would leave bodies in his yard. Finch raised a hand, stopping his men from responding. "Gentlemen, let's all take a breath. Mr. Brennan, you're clearly a man of principle. I respect that. But you need to understand what you're protecting. This woman murdered her husband in cold blood, pushed him down a flight of stairs while he was defenseless. He was drunk," Cole shot back. "And according to her, she wasn't even there when he fell. You're taking the word of his family, who stand to inherit everything if she's convicted. You believe the word of a scarred fugitive over that of a royal court? I believe the evidence of my own eyes. That woman has been here 3 weeks. She's worked hard, treated my children with kindness, and given me no reason to doubt her character. Your royal court, on the other hand, is paying $50,000 to have her kidnapped, rather than going through proper diplomatic channels. That tells me everything I need to know about who's really guilty here." Finch's mask of pleasantness finally cracked, revealing the dangerous man beneath. "You're risking your life, your children's lives, for someone you barely know. Is that really the hill you want to die on?" "Don't threaten my children," Cole said quietly, and there was something in his voice that made even Finch's horse shift nervously. "You do that again, and this conversation is over." Judge Harrington, sensing things deteriorating rapidly, tried to intervene. "Cole, be reasonable. Just let us search the property. If the woman isn't here, we'll leave peacefully. But if you're hiding her, that makes you an accomplice. To what crime? Murder in a foreign country? Theft of property that was legally hers? You don't even have jurisdiction to investigate, let alone arrest anyone." Cole took a step forward. "But I'll make you a deal. I've sent word to the U.S. Marshal in Helena. When he arrives, we'll all sit down and discuss this properly, with actual legal authority present. Until then, you wait in town, you don't harass anyone on this ranch, and you definitely don't threaten my family. Agreed?" Finch studied him for a long moment. "When is this marshal supposed to arrive?" 2, maybe 3 days, and if he rules in our favor? If he determines the warrant is valid? Then we'll discuss next steps, legally." It was a calculated gamble. Cole was buying time, hoping Marshal Blackwood would see through Finch's manufactured authority. But he was also giving Finch a face-saving exit that didn't require violence. Finch seemed to recognize this. He nodded slowly. 3 days. But my men will be watching the roads. If the princess tries to run, we'll consider that proof of guilt and act accordingly. She's not going anywhere. We'll see." Finch wheeled his horse around. "Come on, boys. Let's let Mr. Brennan think about his choices." They rode off, Harrington looking relieved to be leaving. Only when they were out of sight did Cole allow himself to breathe. Jake Morrison came down from the porch. That was close. Thought for sure the one with the scar was going to draw. He might have, if Finch hadn't stopped him. They're professionals. They don't want a shooting war, if they can avoid it. Cole wiped sweat from his brow despite the cool morning air. But we just bought ourselves 3 days, maybe less. Dutch better make good time to Helena. He found Katerina in her cabin, standing by the window with Thomas and Eliza on either side of her. She'd heard everything. "You should have let them search," she said. "They would have found me, yes, but at least no one would have been hurt. And then what? They drag you onto a ship back to people who want to execute you? Better than your children watching their father die protecting a stranger. You're not a stranger, not anymore. Cole glanced at Thomas and Eliza, who were watching the exchange with worried faces. Kids, why don't you go help Luke with the horses? Anna and I need to talk. Once they were gone, Katerina turned to face him fully. You can't win this, Cole. Even if the marshal sides with you, Finch won't give up. $50,000 is too much money. They'll wait, watch. Find a moment when your guard is down, and take me. And anyone who gets in their way will die. So what are you suggesting? That I just hand you over? I'm suggesting you think about Thomas and Eliza. What happens to them if you're killed? They've already lost their mother. Don't make them orphans for my sake. Cole moved to the window. Looking out at his ranch, the land he'd built with Margaret, the home they'd created together. You know what Margaret used to say? She said the measure of a person isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when everything's on the line, when the choice is between what's right and what's safe. And dying for me is right. Protecting an innocent woman from people who want to hurt her. Yes. Teaching my children that you stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Absolutely. He turned to face her. Besides, I'm not planning on dying. I'm planning on holding out until the marshal arrives, then letting proper law sort this out. You have a lot of faith in proper law. More faith than I have in corrupt judges and hired guns. Katerina was quiet for a moment. In my country, before the fire, I was taught that common people existed to serve the nobility, that their lives mattered less than ours because of bloodlines and titles. I believed it, or at least I never questioned it. She touched her scarred face. Then this happened, and suddenly I wasn't nobility anymore. I was a monster to be hidden away. And I learned that without beauty and status, I was nothing to those people. Just an embarrassment. You're not nothing here. No, here I'm a cook who makes good biscuits. She smiled slightly. It's strange. I had more power as a princess, but I've never felt more valued than I do in this kitchen, teaching your daughter to braid bread. Before Cole could respond, Billy burst into the cabin, out of breath. Boss, we got in trouble, real trouble. Cole's hand went to his gun. Finch coming back? No, sir. Fire. The eastern pasture is burning, and it's spreading fast toward the cattle. Cole's blood went cold. The eastern pasture bordered the main road, the same road Finch and his men had taken back to town. It could be coincidence, but he didn't believe in coincidences. Get everyone who can hold a bucket, Cole ordered. And someone ride to the Morrison place, get their father and the rest of the family out here. We need all the help we can get. As Billy ran off, Cole turned to Katerina. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me or one of my men. Understand? You think Finch started the fire. I think it's a hell of a coincidence that our pasture catches fire an hour after he leaves. Cole checked his rifle. This could be a diversion, a way to draw us away from the house and make it easier to grab you. So you stay put, stay hidden, and stay safe. Cole, please, Katerina, just this once, don't argue with me. She nodded reluctantly, and he ran out into the chaos that was unfolding across his ranch. The eastern pasture was engulfed in flames. Orange and red tongues licking at the dry grass and racing toward the tree line. If it reached the forest, they'd lose everything, the timber, the grazing land, possibly even the ranch buildings if the wind shifted. Jake Morrison was already organizing a bucket brigade from the well to the fire line. Sam and Billy were trying to drive the panicked cattle away from the flames. Luke was beating at the fire's edge with a wet blanket, trying to create a fire break. Cole grabbed a bucket and joined the line, his mind racing. If this was Finch's doing, it was brilliant and terrible. Fighting the fire required every able body, leaving the house vulnerable. But if they didn't fight it, they'd lose everything anyway. He was hauling his 10th bucket of water when he saw movement near the house. A figure moving too carefully to be one of his men. Cole dropped the bucket and ran, his heart pounding. If Finch had sent someone while they were all distracted, he reached the cabin just as the door burst open. One of Finch's men, the one with the scarred nose, had a knife to Katerina's throat. Behind him, another hired gun held Thomas and Eliza. His hand clamped over Eliza's mouth to muffle her screams. "Nobody move," Scarred Nose growled. "We're taking the princess. You try to stop us, these kids die first." Cole froze, his rifle useless. Any shot risked hitting the children. His mind raced through options, each one ending in bloodshed. Then Katerina spoke, her voice calm despite the blade at her throat. "Let the children go. I'll come with you willingly. You have my word." "Anna, no." Thomas struggled against his captor's grip. "I said let them go." Katerina's storm-gray eyes locked on Cole. "Please, let them go." The next few seconds would determine everything: whether Cole's gamble paid off, whether his children survived, whether Katerina disappeared forever into Finch's custody. And in that moment, with his children's lives hanging in the balance, Cole realized that sometimes protecting the people you loved meant making impossible choices. The question was, what choice could he possibly make now? Time seemed to slow as Cole stared at the blade pressed against Katerina's throat, at his children's terrified faces, at the impossible situation Finch had engineered. Every instinct screamed at him to act, but any move he made could end with his children's blood on his hands. "Smart thinking, Princess," Scarred Nose said, pressing the knife closer. A thin line of red appeared on Katerina's skin. "Now tell your rancher friend here to back off, and nobody gets hurt." But Cole saw something in Katerina's eyes, not fear, but calculation. Her gaze flicked to the man holding the children, then back to Cole, and he understood. She was waiting for an opening, just like he was. The sound of boots on the porch gave them that opening. Henry Morrison appeared in the doorway behind the man holding Thomas and Eliza, his rifle raised. "Let them go, now." The hired gun spun, dragging the children with him as a shield. In that split second of distraction, Katerina moved. She was faster than Cole would have thought possible. Her hand shot up, catching Scarred Nose's wrist and twisting it with a technique that spoke of training, real training, not the desperate flailing of an amateur. The knife clattered to the floor, and she drove her elbow into his throat with brutal efficiency. Cole didn't hesitate. He lunged forward, tackling the man holding his children. They went down hard, Cole's shoulder connecting with the man's gut. Thomas and Eliza scrambled free, and Henry was on the hired gun in seconds, rifle barrel pressed to his head. "Don't even breathe wrong," Henry warned. Scarred Nose was on the ground, gasping for air, Katerina's knee on his chest and his own knife now at his throat. Cole had never seen her like this, fierce, dangerous, every inch the warrior despite her scarred face. "Where's Finch?" Cole demanded, hauling the children behind him. The hired gun Henry was covering spat blood. "Go to hell." Cole grabbed the front of his shirt. "You came onto my property, threatened my children, and set fire to my land. I'm within my rights to shoot you both right now and claim self-defense. So I'll ask again, where is Finch?" "Waiting on the North Road," Scarred Nose wheezed, Katerina's knife still pressed to his throat. "With the others. Soon as we signaled, they were supposed to ride in and take her while you were busy with the fire." "How do you signal them?" "3 shots. We were supposed to fire 3 shots once we had her." Cole looked at Henry. "How bad is the fire?" "Jake and the others have it mostly contained. Morrison Sr. arrived with his boys, and we managed to cut a fire break. Should be out within the hour." "Good." Cole turned back to the 2 hired guns. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay right here, tied up nice and tight, until the marshal arrives. Then you'll answer for trespassing, arson, kidnapping, and threatening children. That should buy you a few years in territorial prison. Finch won't let us rot in jail, the hired gun said. Finch is going to have his own problems. Henry, get some rope. Make sure these two can't wiggle a finger. Once the men were secured in the barn under guard, Cole turned to Katerina. She'd composed herself again, the fierce warrior replaced by the quiet cook, but her hands were shaking slightly. Where did you learn to fight like that? Cole asked quietly. My father believed a princess should know how to defend herself. He hired a former soldier to teach me knife work, hand-to-hand combat, how to use an attacker's strength against them. She touched her scarred face. It didn't help me against the fire, but apparently the skills remained. Thomas rushed over and threw his arms around her waist. You saved us. Eliza followed, clinging to Katerina's skirt. I was so scared, Anna. Katerina knelt down, embracing both children. I know, sweethearts. I know. But you're safe now. Cole felt something shift in his chest watching them, his children seeking comfort from this woman, who'd been a stranger a month ago. This scarred princess who'd risked her life for them without hesitation. Papa. Finch is still out there, Thomas said, his voice steadier now that the immediate danger had passed. What are we going to do? We're going to end this, Cole said. Henry, can you stay here with the children and Katerina? Of course. Jake and Luke, you're with me. Billy and Sam, stay with the fire crew and make sure those flames don't restart. Cole checked his rifle. Time to have a conversation with Mr. Finch about the consequences of threatening my family. Cole, wait. Katerina stood, her storm-gray eyes serious. If you go after him now, this becomes a war. People will die. People have already nearly died. My children were held at knife point because of Finch's schemes. That ends now. Then let me come with you. This is my fight, not yours. No, Cole's voice was firm. You stay here where it's safe. This is about protecting my home and my family. That includes you now, whether you like it or not. Before she could argue further, he was out the door with Jake and Luke Morrison flanking him. They rode north, moving fast but careful, rifles ready. The land here was hilly, covered with pine trees that provided cover, but also concealment for ambushes. They found Finch exactly where his men had said, waiting on the north road with his remaining 3 guns. The detective sat on his horse with infuriating calm, as if he'd been expecting them. Mr. Brennan, Finch called out. I assume since you're here instead of my men, the plan didn't work out as intended. Your men are tied up in my barn, and you're about to join them. You set fire to my property, sent armed men to kidnap someone from my home, and threatened my children. That's arson, attempted kidnapping, and assault. The territorial marshal is going to love hearing about this. Finch smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You have no proof I set that fire. As for my men, they were simply attempting to execute a legitimate warrant. If things got heated, well, these situations can become complicated. Legitimate warrant signed by a corrupt judge using forged documents. The governor never endorsed that extradition order, and you know it. Can you prove that? Because when the marshal arrives, if he arrives, it'll be your word against mine and Judge Harrington's. And I have the resources to make this very expensive for you legally. Cole urged his horse forward. Here's what I think. Finch, I think you're used to operating in places where money and intimidation get you what you want. But this isn't Europe, and you don't have unlimited power here. You made a mistake when you threatened my children. That changed this from a legal dispute to something personal. Are you threatening me, Mr. Brennan? I'm informing you. You have until sundown to be out of Silver Creek. Take your men, take your corrupt judge, and get on the next train east. If I see you anywhere near my property or my family again, we'll settle this the frontier way. One of Finch's men, a tall gunslinger with a scarred jaw, laughed. 3 against 4. You sure you want those odds, Rancher? Jake Morrison spoke up. More like 3 against 1, actually. See, we're not the ones who've been sitting on horses for the past hour. Our rifles are already aimed at your hearts. You draw, you die. Simple arithmetic. Luke had indeed positioned himself in the trees, his rifle trained on the group. The tactical advantage was clear. Finch's expression hardened. You're making a serious mistake. The Valdorian royal family has resources you can't imagine. They'll send more men, better men. And next time, you won't see them coming. Then I'll deal with them when they arrive. But you're done here. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other, the wealthy detective accustomed to getting his way, and the frontier rancher who'd drawn a line he wouldn't cross. Finally, Finch nodded slowly. Very well. We'll leave Silver Creek. But understand this, Mr. Brennan. Princess Katerina Volkov is wanted for murder. That doesn't go away just because you've decided to play hero. Sooner or later, justice will catch up to her. And to you. We'll see about that. Now ride. Finch and his men turned their horses and headed south, back toward town. Cole didn't lower his rifle until they were out of sight. Think he'll really leave? Jake asked. Not a chance. He'll regroup, try a different approach. But we bought ourselves time. Cole looked at the sun, measuring the hours until dark. Dutch should reach Helena tomorrow morning if he pushed through the night. That means the marshal could be here by tomorrow evening at the earliest. Can we hold out that long? We'll have to. They rode back to the ranch where Henry reported that the fire was completely out and the prisoners were secure. Cole gathered everyone in the main house, his ranch hands, the Morrison boys, and Katerina. Finch is leaving town, but he'll be back, Cole said. We need to be ready for anything. Double watches tonight. Nobody goes anywhere alone, and we keep the children close. What about the marshal? Sam asked. What if he sides with Finch? Then we figure out our next move. But Tom Blackwood is a good man. He'll see through Finch's manufactured evidence. Katerina had been quiet throughout the debriefing, but now she spoke. I need to tell you all something. Something I haven't shared with anyone. Everyone turned to look at her. She took a deep breath. The jewels that Finch claims I stole, they're not just valuable because of their monetary worth. They contain something more important, documents. Letters between my husband and certain European officials, proving he was involved in a conspiracy to overthrow my country's parliament and install absolute monarchy. He wanted to eliminate any democratic reforms and return to feudal rule. Cole leaned forward. You're saying your husband was planning a coup? Yes, and when I discovered his plans, I threatened to expose him. That's why he came after me that night with the lamp. That's why I was burned, not because he was randomly violent, but because he was trying to silence me. And the night he died? I wasn't there when he fell. I was in my chambers, under guard, recovering from the burns. But his co-conspirators couldn't let the truth come out. They needed a scapegoat, someone to blame for his death so they could continue his plans. A scarred princess who'd threatened him was perfect. So the murder charge is fabricated, Jake said slowly. And they want you back not for justice, but to keep you from revealing the conspiracy. Exactly. The jewels contain those letters hidden in their settings, proof of everything. If I can get them to the right people, to international authorities or the press, the conspiracy falls apart. Where are these jewels now? Cole asked. Katerina hesitated. Somewhere safe. I hid them before I came here, in case something like this happened. We need to retrieve them. Those documents could change everything. It's too dangerous. If Finch even suspects, he already suspects. He's not giving up, which means he knows you have something more valuable than just jewels. Cole stood. Where are they? In a bank in Helena, under a false name. The room went silent as the implications sank in. Dutch was already on his way to Helena. The jewels and the marshal were in the same city. This changes everything, Cole said. If we can get those documents to the marshal, prove what Leopold was planning, it becomes an international matter. Finch loses all leverage. But how do we get them? Luke asked. Finch will be watching every move we make. Not if he thinks we're still here defending the ranch. Cole turned to Jake Morrison. How fast can you ride? Fast as anyone. Then here's what we're going to do. As Cole laid out his plan, Katerina watched with a mixture of hope and fear. For the first time since fleeing her homeland, she had real allies who weren't just helping her run, but helping her fight back. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake Finch's final words, "Justice will catch up to her." And to you, the question was, whose version of justice would prevail? The corrupted justice of those who wanted to silence her, or the honest justice of people who believed her story and were willing to risk everything to prove it? By tomorrow evening, they'd have their answer. Assuming they all survived that long, Jake Morrison left for Helena before dawn, carrying a letter from Katerina authorizing the bank to release the contents of her safety deposit box. The plan was simple but risky. Retrieve the jewels and documents, find Dutch and the marshal, and return with both legal authority and evidence that would destroy Finch's case. But simple plans rarely survive contact with reality. The day passed with agonizing slowness. Cole kept everyone busy with ranch work, partly to maintain normalcy and partly to keep minds occupied. Thomas helped mend fence posts, though he kept glancing toward the road. Eliza stayed close to Katerina in the kitchen, learning to make pie crust but jumping at every unexpected sound. As afternoon turned to evening, Henry Morrison spotted riders approaching from the south. Not Finch's group. These were different men, riding harder and faster. "Cole," Henry called from his watch position. "We got company." Cole grabbed his rifle and positioned himself on the porch, the other men taking their assigned defensive positions. But as the riders drew closer, he recognized the lead horse. Dutch, relief flooded through him, followed immediately by confusion. Dutch was supposed to be in Helena. Why was he back so soon? Then he saw who rode beside his foreman, a tall man with silver hair and a marshal's star pinned to his vest. Tom Blackwood had made better time than anyone expected. But there were 4 other riders with them, and Cole's heart sank when he recognized Garrett Finch among them. "Hold your fire," Cole called to his men. "Let's hear what they have to say." The group dismounted in the yard. Marshal Blackwood was in his 50s, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades enforcing law in harsh territory. His eyes were sharp and assessing as they swept over the ranch, taking in the armed men, the defensive positions, the tension crackling in the air. "Mr. Brennan," Blackwood said, his voice gravelly from years of tobacco and trail dust. "I'm U.S. Marshal Tom Blackwood. Your foreman here met me on the road and explained the situation. Mr. Finch has also presented his side of events. I'd like to hear yours. With respect, Marshal, why is Finch here? Because I invited him. This situation involves accusations of serious crimes, and I need to hear all parties before making any decisions." Blackwood gestured toward the house. "Can we speak inside? Preferably without all these rifles pointed at each other." Cole hesitated, then nodded. "Dutch, keep watch. Everyone else, lower your weapons but stay alert." He looked at Finch. "Your men stay outside." "Agreed," Finch said smoothly. They gathered in Cole's front room. Cole, Katerina, Marshal Blackwood, and Finch. The marshal took the chair Cole offered while the others remained standing, the tension thick enough to cut. "All right," Blackwood said, pulling out a notebook. "Let's start with the basics. Miss, are you Princess Katerina Volkov of Valdoria?" Katerina lifted her chin, her scarred face proud despite the disfigurement. "I am. And are you wanted in your home country for the murder of Crown Prince Leopold and the theft of royal jewels?" "I am wanted, yes. But I didn't murder my husband, and the jewels I took were legally mine, my mother's dowry, passed to me upon her death. Finch leaned forward. Marshal, this woman is a fugitive from justice. The Valdorian government has issued a legitimate warrant for her arrest and has requested her extradition through proper diplomatic channels. I have documentation. I've seen your documentation, Mr. Finch, including the warrant that Judge Harrington tried to enforce without proper gubernatorial authorization. Blackwood's expression was unreadable. What I need now is to understand the full picture. Katerina took a deep breath. Marshal, my husband was not the man his family portrayed. He was violent, especially when drinking. 2 years into our marriage, he threw a burning lamp at me during one of his rages. That's how I got these scars. She touched her damaged face. After that, I was embarrassed to be hidden away. But I remained because leaving wasn't an option in my world. Then, 7 months ago, I discovered documents proving Leopold was planning a coup against our parliament. He wanted to eliminate democratic reforms and establish absolute monarchy. That's a serious accusation, Blackwood said. It's a desperate fabrication, Finch interjected. The Crown Prince was a respected. Let her finish, Blackwood said firmly. When I confronted him, he threatened me. 2 nights later, he died falling down the palace stairs. I wasn't there. I was under guard in my chambers. But his co-conspirators needed someone to blame, and a scarred wife he'd abused was perfect. They accused me of murder and claimed the jewels I'd inherited from my mother were royal property. And these documents you mentioned? Hidden in the jewels. Letters between Leopold and various officials proving the conspiracy. That's what they really want back, not justice, but silence. Finch stood abruptly. This is absurd. The princess is spinning elaborate stories to avoid facing justice. The fact remains, she fled her country after being accused of murder, stole valuable property, and has been evading legitimate authorities for 7 months. The law is clear. The law is also clear about jurisdiction, Cole spoke up. This is American soil. You can't just kidnap a foreign citizen because their home country wants them back. No one is kidnapping anyone, Finch said coldly. We're following proper legal procedures. By setting fire to my ranch? By sending armed men to threaten my children? Cole's voice was hard. I've got 2 of your men tied up in my barn who'll testify to that, Marshal. Blackwood's expression darkened. Is that true, Mr. Finch? Any actions taken were in self-defense and in pursuit of a fugitive. Mr. Brennan has been harboring a wanted criminal. The sound of horses approaching interrupted him. Everyone turned toward the window as more riders appeared, but these weren't Finch's men, It was Jake Morrison, and he wasn't alone. Beside him rode a woman in her 60s, elegantly dressed despite the trail dust, with steel gray hair and piercing eyes. Behind them came 3 more riders wearing uniforms Cole didn't recognize. Marshal, Jake called out, dismounting quickly. You need to see this. They went outside, where the older woman dismounted with practiced grace. She was small but carried herself with unmistakable authority. I am Countess Helena Volkov, she announced, her accent thick but her English clear. Katerina's aunt and sister to her late mother. I have traveled from Europe with representatives from the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Finch's face went pale. What is this? This, the Countess said coldly, is justice. Real justice, not the corrupted version you represent. She turned to Blackwood. Marshal, I bring evidence that will clarify this entire situation. Jake handed Blackwood a leather satchel. Inside were the jewels, stunning pieces that glittered in the fading sunlight. But more importantly, there were documents. Letters bearing official seals, correspondence in multiple languages, and photographs of what appeared to be meetings between Leopold and known extremists. For the past 6 months, the Countess explained, I have been working with international authorities to investigate Crown Prince Leopold's activities. When Katerina fled with these documents, she didn't know I had already begun my own inquiry. into my nephew-in-law's suspicious political connections. She pulled out a specific document. This is a letter from Leopold to General Christoph, outlining plans to assassinate 3 parliament members who opposed his reforms. It's dated 2 weeks before his death. There are others like it, proof of treason, conspiracy, and planned political violence. Where did you get these? Finch demanded, his composure cracking. From the same bank in Helena where my niece wisely deposited them. When young Mr. Morrison arrived with Katerina's authorization, the bank manager contacted me. I had left standing instructions to be notified if anyone accessed that particular deposit box. I was already in America, pursuing my own investigation, and was able to reach Helena within hours. She turned to Katerina, her eyes softening. My dear child, I am so sorry I could not protect you sooner. After the fire, after Leopold isolated you, I tried to maintain contact, but his family blocked my letters. When you fled, I feared the worst. It took me weeks to trace your path. Katerina's eyes filled with tears. Aunt Helena, I thought I was alone. Never alone. Your mother was my beloved sister, and I swore to her on her deathbed I would look after you. The Countess's voice hardened as she turned to Finch. Which brings me to you. Mr. Finch, you were hired not by the Valdorian government, but by Leopold's co-conspirators, men who are themselves now under investigation for treason. One of the uniformed men stepped forward. I am Inspector Wilhelm Franz from the International Court. We have arrest warrants for several members of the former Crown Prince's inner circle, including Duke Victor Volkov, who hired Mr. Finch's services. Finch's hand moved toward his gun, but Blackwood was faster, his own weapon already drawn. Don't even think about it, the marshal said quietly. You're under arrest for arson, attempted kidnapping, assault, and operating as a foreign agent without proper authorization on United States soil. This is outrageous, Finch protested. But his voice lacked its usual confidence. I was hired to perform a legal service. You were hired to silence a witness to treason, Inspector Franz corrected. We have testimony from several sources, including some of your own men who decided cooperation was preferable to prison. Cole watched as Blackwood's deputies, who'd been waiting down the road, moved in to arrest Finch and his remaining men. The detective's facade of civilized professionalism finally shattered as they dragged him toward a horse. You won't win, Finch snarled at Katerina. You're still a scarred monster nobody wants. You think you can go back to being a princess? Look at yourself. Cole stepped forward, his fist connecting with Finch's jaw before anyone could stop him. The detective went down hard, blood streaming from his split lip. That's for threatening my children, Cole said quietly. Blackwood sighed. Can't say he didn't deserve it, but try to restrain yourself. Mr. Brennan. As Finch was hauled away, Countess Helena approached Katerina, taking her niece's scarred hands in her own. You've been through so much, my dear. But you're safe now. The conspiracy is exposed. Leopold's co-conspirators are facing justice, and you are cleared of all charges. What happens now? Katerina asked softly. That depends on what you want. You could return to Valdoria. There are many who support you, who know you were wronged. The Parliament has expressed interest in having you return as a symbol of reform, of standing against corruption. You could have your title restored, your position in society. Katerina looked at her aunt, then at Cole and his children, then at the ranch around her. Thomas and Eliza had crept outside and now stood watching anxiously. Or? Katerina asked. Or you could choose a different life. The jewels and your mother's dowry are legally yours, worth enough that you could live anywhere, do anything you wished. You're not bound by the old rules anymore. The Countess smiled sadly. Your mother always said I was too modern in my thinking, but I believe a woman should choose her own path, especially one who has survived what you have. Katerina was silent for a long moment. Then she walked over to where Thomas and Eliza stood. "If I left," she asked them gently, "would you miss me?" Eliza threw her arms around Katerina's waist. "Don't go. Please don't go." Thomas, trying to be brave, nodded. "We'd miss you a lot, but if you need to go be a princess again, we'd understand." Katerina knelt down, embracing both children. "You know what I've learned? Being a princess is about titles and crowns and living in a palace where people bow to you. But none of that made me happy. None of that made me feel valued." She looked up at Cole. "Here, in this place, I learned what it means to matter. Not because of bloodlines or beauty, but because of who I am and what I do. Your father gave me a chance when I had nothing. You two taught me that scars don't define a person. And together, you all showed me what a real family looks like." Cole felt his throat tighten. "Katerina, I'm not going back," she said firmly, standing to face her aunt. "I'm staying here if Cole will have me. Not as a cook, not as someone hiding, but as myself. Anna Katerina Weston Volkoval, the parts of who I am. Even though you could have everything back?" The Countess asked. "Your title, your position, your place in society. I never really had those things. I had the illusion of them. What I have here is real." The Countess studied her niece's face for a long moment, then smiled. "Your mother would be so proud of you. Choosing happiness over duty, choosing love over obligation." She glanced at Cole. "I assume, Mr. Brennan, that my niece would be welcome to remain." Cole looked at Katerina, this scarred, brave woman who'd saved his children, who'd brought life back to his home, who'd stood up to threats and danger with unwavering courage. "She'd be more than welcome," he said quietly, "if she's sure this is what she wants." "I'm sure," Katerina said. "For the first time in my life, I'm absolutely sure." 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, the ranch house was filled with activity. The Countess had stayed in America, dividing her time between Helena and the ranch, and had become a fixture in Thomas and Eliza's lives. She taught them languages, history, and much to Cole's amusement proper etiquette. Though she was the first to admit frontier living required different rules, Katerina had settled into life at the ranch completely. She still cooked, she genuinely enjoyed it, but she'd also taken on managing the household accounts, teaching the children, and even helping with ranch business. Her sharp mind and education proved invaluable, and Cole increasingly relied on her judgment. The town of Silver Creek had been skeptical at first when news of her identity spread, but Katerina won them over the same way she'd won over Cole's family, through hard work, genuine kindness, and refusal to hide behind her scars or her title. Today was special, though. Marshal Blackwood had arrived with official documents from Washington, confirming that all charges against Katerina had been dismissed and that she was free to remain in the United States as long as she wished. The international investigation had also concluded, with several of Leopold's co-conspirators facing trial in Europe. "It's really over," Katerina said, holding the documents in her kitchen, her domain, where she felt most at home. "It's really over," Cole confirmed. "You're free. No one is hunting you. No one is threatening you. Just life." "Just life," she repeated, smiling. The expression still looked strange on her scarred face, but Cole had learned to read the emotions in her eyes, the warmth in her voice that had nothing to do with physical appearance. "There's something I want to ask you," Cole said, his heart pounding. He'd been planning this for weeks, but the right moment had never seemed to arrive. "About the future. What about it? You said you chose to stay here, to be part of this family. And you have been Thomas and Eliza love you like." He paused, searching for words. "Like Margaret was their mother, you've become something just as important to them. And to me." Katerina set down the documents, her expression unreadable. "Cole, let me finish. I know it hasn't been that long. I know you're just getting your life back, figuring out who you are without someone hunting you. But I also know that when I think about the future, about what I want for this ranch and these children, you're in that picture. Not as the cook or the governess or the woman who's staying here temporarily. As family, as ... more. He pulled out a simple gold band, nothing fancy, just an honest frontier ring from the Silver Creek jeweler. I'm not good with words like you are. But I'm asking, would you consider staying permanently? As my wife? Katerina stared at the ring, her scarred hand trembling as she reached for it. You want to marry me? I want to marry you. Not the princess you were, not despite the scars. But you, the woman who makes my children laugh, who saved their lives. Who chose this hard life over an easy one because it was real. Tears streamed down her face, following the contours of her damaged skin. People will talk. A rancher marrying a scarred foreign princess. They'll say you're after my money, or I'm after respectability, or let them talk. I learned something from you, Katerina. You taught me that what matters isn't what other people think or see. It's what's true between the people involved. He stepped closer. So I'm asking, what's true for you? Because for me, the truth is I haven't felt this alive, this hopeful, since Margaret died. You brought light back into this house, and I don't want to lose that. Katerina wiped her eyes, laughing through her tears. You're sure? Absolutely certain? Because if I say yes, I'm not going anywhere. Ever. You'll be stuck with me. Scars and foreign accent and stubborn opinions and all. That sounds perfect, Cole said, smiling. Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and she threw her arms around him. Behind them, the kitchen door burst open, and Thomas and Eliza tumbled in, followed by a beaming Countess Helena. We were listening at the door, Eliza announced unrepentantly. Does this mean Anna's really going to be our mama? Katerina knelt down, pulling both children close. If you'll have me as one. I know I can never replace your mother. You're not replacing her, Thomas said seriously. You're our second chance. Papa says everyone deserves a second chance. Then I'll try my best to deserve this one, Katerina promised. The wedding was small, held at the ranch with the Morrison family. Dutch, the ranch hands, and half of Silver Creek in attendance. Judge Harrington had been replaced by an honest magistrate from Helena, who performed the ceremony under the autumn sky as Cole and Katerina exchanged vows. He looked at her scarred face and saw not disfigurement, but courage. Saw not a princess playing at being a cook, but a woman who'd found her true home in the last place anyone would expect. And when he kissed his bride, with his children cheering and the Countess wiping away tears, Cole felt Margaret's presence in the wind, not sad, but approving. Life moved on. It had to, but it could also surprise you, bringing unexpected blessings from unlikely places. Like finding a scarred woman in your barn and discovering she was exactly what your broken family needed to become whole again. Katerina Volkov-Brennan never returned to Valdoria. Her story became legend there, the princess who chose love over power, who found her kingdom not in a palace, but in a Montana ranch house where children laughed and honest work was done, and scars meant you'd survive something terrible and come out stronger. And every morning, when she made breakfast for her family, she smiled. Because she'd finally found what every princess in every story truly seeks. Not a prince to rescue her, but a place where she could rescue herself. And people who loved her for exactly who she was. The rancher had hired the scarred cook everyone feared. She turned out to be a princess, but more importantly, she turned out to be home. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.